Broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Lots to cover. Impeachment, good or bad idea. If you listen to conservatives in radio and on Fox, they think it's a laughably stupid idea. I disagree. Tariffs, good idea. Look what it did to the EU. No, stupid, actually. Most of us aren't hurting from this, but a lot of people are, and $12 billion doesn't fix it, but it's an acknowledgement that they're stupid. But I'll get into that in the last hour, so at least you'll listen to the first 2 hours. And freedom of the press. Freedom of the press rests on the shoulders of this one young lady. And if she didn't get to ask her questions in the way that she wanted to ask them, at the time that she wanted to ask them, in the place that she wanted to ask them, well, then it endangers our freedom of the press, don't you know? BS. Now, let's start with this impeachment. How about a little bit of context, or whataboutism? President of the United States is elected fair and square under our Constitution, and immediately the long knives are out. And two men whom he nominates or confirmed abandon their constitutional responsibilities. That is the Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, and the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, Rod Rosenstein is his name. The Deputy Attorney General, after Sessions recuses himself within days, appoints a special counsel with no legal basis whatsoever. The Deputy Attorney General for these purposes is the Acting Attorney General. He makes all the decisions. He wasn't confirmed as the Attorney General, and yet he has even seized power from the Attorney General of the United States and conveyed it to a special counsel. You see, Mr. Sessions recused himself over specific areas. Mr. Rosenstein has been granting authority to the special counsel on very broad areas where only the real Attorney General, Sessions, has the power to do so. Sessions refuses to intercede, and Mr. Rosenstein just keeps at it. So the Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein, as the Acting Attorney General, improperly confers powers of the Attorney General, and I would argue a United States Attorney, principal officers, on an inferior officer whom he chooses, in violation of the Department of Justice regulations and the Constitution of the United States. The special counsel, exercising powers that are repulsive to our constitutional system, continues to expand the breadth of his activities and continues to be supported in doing so by the Deputy Attorney General as the Acting Attorney General, Rosenstein, as the actual Attorney General continues to sit on the sidelines. This raises very serious questions of the Appointments Clause. The special counsel, as it turns out, is a very close friend with the man who appointed him, Rod Rosenstein. We've since learned that Rod Rosenstein's first professional full-time career job at the Department of Justice was as a line attorney in the Public Integrity Section of the Criminal Division. At that time, it was headed by a gentleman by the name of Robert Mueller. So, Mr. Rosenstein doesn't actually appoint an independent individual to be special counsel. He appoints his friend, the former FBI director, his former boss, Mr. Mueller, who also happens to be a very close friend to the next FBI director, Mr. Comey. Stay with me. These people are conflicted up the wazoo. Meanwhile, the Deputy Attorney General himself is conflicted. He was the one who recommended the firing of the then FBI Director Comey, who apparently is the focus, in part, and has been for a while, by the special counsel, his friend, in some fabrication of obstruction of justice. The then FBI director, and also conflicted in that he signed an extension of the FICE application. It doesn't matter what's in the FICE application. It is the subject, or at least part of, an investigation relevant to Russia. Now, Congress, you may have heard, is another branch of our government. It's actually in the Constitution. Department of Justice isn't. The FBI isn't. Congress is. Matter of fact, it's right there at the beginning under Article 1. Congress, actually, we talk about the co-equal branches of government. When you read the Federalist Papers and when you read Madison's notes, they always believed Congress was to be the most powerful body. But Congress has oversight power because Congress is said to best represent the people. The Department of Justice and FBI, which are not in the Constitution, have been slow rolling information to Congress. I'm not talking about legitimate redactions of sources and methods and certain individuals. I'm not talking about that. We have found out since, over the last year or more, that many of the redactions have been self-serving. In fact, key information that has come out didn't come from the Department of Justice, conference of documents or information, or the FBI. Came from a lawsuit that was filed by the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes. That's how we found out ultimately who funded the dossier. Even though the FBI knew who funded the dossier, even though the Department of Justice knew who funded the dossier, the Clinton campaign and the Democrat National Committee. Many of the key texts exposing Strzok and Page and others, demonstrating what was going on at the senior levels of the FBI in covering up for Hillary Clinton and going after Donald Trump, came not from subpoenas and document requests to the Department of Justice and FBI, but the Inspector General. The Inspector General didn't receive subpoenas or document requests. Now, Congress, the House in particular, is investigating the involvement of the Department of Justice and FBI, among others, of those agencies, of those departments and individuals who worked for them in the last election. Can there be anything more important for congressional oversight? And the subjects of the investigation, the FBI, the Department of Justice, and certain individuals, they get to determine, apparently, what Congress gets to see. Even outside sources, methods, individuals, and so forth that would harm national security. And again, we circle back. The man in charge of this entire fiasco is Rod Rosenstein. Sessions is in the Witness Protection Program. And now we have this continuing saga, and I'll get to this a little bit later, where Mr. Mueller is desperately trying to wrap the charge of obstruction of justice around the president's neck, either from a criminal perspective or perception perspective, because he wants to fuel impeachment. And so we hear today all these pseudo-conservatives on TV and radio saying impeachment is a stupid idea when it comes to Rosenstein. I just laid out to you all the unlawful, improper, unconstitutional activity that's going on. I didn't even get started, really, in interfering with the last election by the Obama administration, by the FBI, by intelligence agencies, by certain individuals. And you have a handful of men who have some courage in the House of Representatives who look at the Constitution and say, hey, what can we do about this? well, they can have the president fire all these people. And if the president fires all these people, he will be impeached. But apart from that, Congress has an independent responsibility. Congress doesn't have to wait for a president or encourage a president. Congress has an independent responsibility to get to the bottom of it and fix it. If you're serious about out-of-control centralized government, which apparently most people are not. So they look at the Constitution and they say, well, we have impeachment here. No, they should do contempt. Well, that'll work. Who enforces contempt? Raise your hand. Who enforces that? The Department of Justice, specifically the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. How many contempt cases that Congress has charged certain individuals in the past with has the U.S. Attorney's Office at the Department of Justice prosecuted? Eric Holder? No. Lois Lerner? No. You think they're going to go after the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, to whom they report? No, I don't think so. So what does contempt have to do with anything? Well, if they do impeachment, they won't even get enough members of their own party, and it'll look very cynical and political. Sometimes you do what's right. Sometimes you make your case to the American people. They have no other options. I don't care what Turley says. I don't care what Dershowitz says. They're no more experts than anybody else. Sometimes you actually have to make the case to the American people, win, lose, or draw. Sometimes you have to stand up for the Constitution and the rule of law, win, lose, or draw. This is a very silly idea, impeachment. It's only happened a few times in our history. So what? I'm not saying it should happen 100 times. We're talking about Rosenstein. What's taken place in the last 2 years? How many times has that happened in American history? So we're told the president should dump that. So we're told the president should sit around and just let these things take their natural course. We're told Congress should just shut up, let these things take their they can hold hearings and issue press releases and go on cable TV. That's fine. But when it actually comes time to pull a trigger and try to do something, no. It's the same arguments I hear against Article 5 Convention of States. Government's too big. It's out of control. We have this autocracy. They're in our face. They're taxing us. Okay, the Constitution provides an avenue. I don't know if it'll work, but let's go for it. No, we can't do that. People just like to complain or analyze or debate. It's useless. So let me be the one who says that Mr. Rosenstein should be impeached, but apparently won't be impeached because it's been walked back, even the articles, by the conservatives. They cannot get enough votes, apparently, within the Republican caucus. And so now we just leave it to Mr. Rosenstein and Mr. Mueller to determine the fate of the nation. They get to interpret the Constitution. They get to abuse the Constitution. But if somebody wants to stand up and try and do something about it, they throw tomatoes at them. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.